The idea of restoring movement after paralysis is one of the greatest quests in medicine. Imagine a device implanted in the skull. It sends electrical pulses to a sister component in the spine. Together, they create a digital bridge that turns thoughts into movement. This device means that people like Marta Cristiano-Dombi can walk again. Behind this breakthrough are two people who have quietly changed what we thought was possible: neuroscientist Grégoire Courtine and neurosurgeon Jocelyn Bloch. Together, they're turning ideas that once felt like science fiction into something real, something implanted and already changing lives. I'm Alex Honnold, professional rock climber and founder of the Honnold Foundation, bringing you stories of inspiring people who are helping to solve today's most pressing conservation issues. In partnership with the Rolex Perpetual Planet Initiative, this is Planet Visionaries. Want to introduce yourself and what do you do?
I'm Jocelyn Bloch. I'm a neurosurgeon, head of the neurosurgical department in Lausanne University. And I've been meeting Grégoire in 2012 when he was a young appointed professor at EPFL, and we started the project together since then.
Yeah, it's true. So I'm a neuroscientist, primarily engineer, physics by training, also professor at the Swiss Federal Institute of Technology. And met Jocelyn June 27, 2012 to show her the paralyzed rats that walk, and told her, Jocelyn, let's do this in human. And that was the beginning of the adventure together.
So talk about your work. What do you guys do together?
So together we have this project of treating people with a spinal cord injury mainly. And maybe you can start telling the principle and I tell you about the surgery and what we have to do together in order to make it work.
I mean, our life mission somehow has become to reverse paralysis. Our goal is to leverage primarily technology, so implants, in order to reawaken the spinal cord muscle and enable the recovery of the spinal cord injury of movement.
Sounds simple enough. Is that simple? What does that entail?
To implant this technology on the spinal cord and on the brain of patients, we needed a lot of preparation, a bit like you when you climb a special rock. You need to understand where are the roots, where are the different nerves that are going to reactivate the muscles, and to put the electrodes at a specific spot in order to be able to move then your legs.
Normally, if you want to move, your brain will send a command to a specific region of the spinal cord. It's 5 centimeters in the middle of your back that control leg muscles.
Okay.
After spinal cord injury, the commands from the brain are interrupted at the level of the injury, and the consequence is permanent paralysis. Although the spinal cord region that controls leg muscle is fully intact, but disconnected from the brain.
And so you're trying to reconnect it?
Correct. An electronic bridge, which means a first implant to record the brain activity. So we decode the intention of the movement with AI, and then we translate the decoding of the movement into stimulation patterns of the spinal cord that will activate the muscle as the brain would want to do to achieve the desired movement. So a digital bridge that turns the thought into action.
Can you talk a little bit about the steps that it took to go from this relatively simple sounding idea to actually implementing it in humans?
We needed a special technology for that. And initially when we met, it was not existing. So we had to find a partner that was allowing us to use what was existing in order to make it work the way we wanted.
Yeah, but Jocelyn, it was only rats walking, basically. So we need the technology for humans.
That's true.
You were working on paralyzed rats,
correct,
and you were able to bridge the gap in their spinal cord, and then they could walk again.
Correct.
Exactly.
I mean, that's kind of amazing.
I know, the beautiful moment, and I can tell you, Alex, when you come to my lab in 2012, when Jocelyn came, I showed her the paralyzed rat. Imagine a rat with like the leg flaccid. Now on the treadmill, not moving at all. And then we turned on the digital bridge and the animal started walking almost perfectly. Remember, Jocelyn?
Yes. And so then we had to find a partner, and they allowed us to use electrodes that normally were used to treat chronic pain, because the technology of stimulating the spinal cord was already existing to treat chronic neuropathic pain. So we decided initially to use these electrodes. and to link them with what we call a neurostimulator that was also existing to treat Parkinson's people, with a deep brain stimulation.
Like a pacemaker, mini computer.
So it's kind of like several like off-label usages where you're taking existing components, you're using them off-label, and you're kind of stitching them together.
I mean, that was the hardware, but then we had to link the intention, to the movement. And for that, we needed to crack the system because this pacemaker was not done for this indication. So they allowed us for the first few patients to crack what we call an IPG, that's this pacemaker, and to make it work the way we wanted.
In terms of engineering, it's pretty advanced because you imagine that you have this stimulator in the belly, and we need to send trains of electrical stimulation at different locations so that it meets the timing of the movement. So, and this needs to be fully wireless and controlled in real time. So this is a very advanced engineering. As you said, the idea is very simple in a way, but the implementation in terms of engineering is wild.
Yeah, and when we met, it did not exist, and that was a bit of a science fiction. Will we make it?
Yeah.
Well, so maybe this is a good opportunity to meet one of your patients in which this does seem to work. Let's see a clip from Marta Carciano-Dombi.
My name is Marta. I live currently in Germany. I have 2 kids, aged 8 and 3, both girls. I was super active being in sports. I was running a lot. That was basically my strength, my focus area. Then biking, mountain bike, street bike, swimming, going on the mountains. I just found out, by the way, that I was pregnant with my first child on the Mont Blanc, the highest peak of Europe. Now, in 2 weeks, is going to be the 7-year anniversary when my whole life turned upside down within a blink of an eye. I was racing at a triathlon event in France, being on the bike and getting ready for the last leg. And on a downhill section, kilometer 63, there must have been something that made me steer very abruptly in a way that flipped the bike upside down. And, there must have been a tree exactly there. So my unluck was a tree with which I hit my back, and this broke my spine. And I was laying there unconscious until one of the fellow competitors found me. He was a French fireman, and I had enormous luck that he was there because he knew exactly what he could do and what he should not do. And he kept holding my head, and he saw that I had breathing difficulties, and then I slowly regained some consciousness, but for me it was still, I don't remember really. I just had in my mind, you're an Iron Woman, keep on going. I just woke up 2 days afterwards, doctors asking me if I'm fine. I must have talked to my husband, I don't remember this, where the doctors told him that I might not survive. I had severe internal bleeding. I had 8 broken ribs perforating my lungs, obviously the broken spine. I was in the surgery room for over 7 hours. You can imagine that with the mindset of being on the bike and, pushing the pedal. And next thing is that you wake up in a completely unknown environment. You're intubated, you cannot talk. So it was very sudden and very surreal for me. Also, one of the first things the doctors told me that you're never going to be able to walk again. So at that point, it felt like I'm in a movie or it's not really happening. Slowly reality kicks in, and then ask yourself, okay, so now what? You slowly open up the world of what's happening in neuroscience. This is where Jocelyn and Grégoire come in picture. I wrote to them very early after the accident, and I asked them, okay, what type of clinical trials are you doing? I entered their family. It's human and in the same time really, hard focused on the results and what can we do in terms of research and what is possible, and can we push the boundaries of, what now science allows us to do? Are we far enough? So I trusted them from the beginning. So for 7 years, I just carried the legs around as a piece of my body. And now they really do stuff for me. So I had to get used to it that, they really hold me and then they make the steps. And, it was just a new relationship with the other part of my body.
We met Marta. She's a strong woman. She was doing an Ironwoman when she had this accident on her bike, and she remained completely paralyzed after this injury.
Waist down, or like
from waist down.
Yeah, okay.
Mm-hmm. So she was first in an acute center. She had a surgery to stabilize her spine. And everybody told her she would never move again her legs. But she told her mom, she called her, she said, I will be okay. You'll see me walking one day.
Several years later, she contacted us, and we thought she had the correct profile to become what we like to call a test pilot for this technology.
A test pilot, I like that.
So, and Jocelyn performed the surgery. So in the same surgery, what did you do?
So for this surgery, we had two surgeries, one on the brain and one on the spinal cord. The one on the brain was to record the intention to move the legs, and what we call an implant just above the region of the brain that is recording the intention to walk. And then the second implant was put above the region of the spinal cord that is controlling leg movement. And then all the electronic bridge the engineers were in between.
I mean, just to perform the two surgeries seems sort of extreme. It's like brain surgery and spinal cord surgery. It's like both those seem
it's not like climbing a building.
Well, it seems like
rope.
more extreme in a way. I don't know.
I mean, it seems always more when you don't know how to do it.
Yeah, of course.
That's what you tell me all the time.
So what happened with Marta? So you personally did these two surgeries. You implanted in her brain and her spine. You connect the digital bridge. And so now, as a result, what...
So it was a preparation, a bit like climbing a rock. You look at Marta's brain exactly to understand where we will have to put the implants. You look at her spinal cord to see where we have to put the implant. There is a lot of preparation, implying, imaging, brain imaging, spinal cord imaging.
Is there a lot of variation between patients?
So not everybody has the same head. The brain is pretty similar, but I mean, where is hidden this motor cortex is a little bit different from one person to the other.
Okay.
But the spinal cord is even worse. The length of the spinal cord is very different from one individual to the other.
That makes sense. Some people are big, some are small.
That's what I thought initially, but some people are very big, but have a small trunk and a small spinal cord, but long legs,
Yeah.
And others, it's different. So
also, that's the anatomy, but there is also... No, you need to decode the intention from the patient. You need to read the thought, right? And this is both very similar, weirdly, across people, and also very different.
Well, is that even something that we can do? Read thoughts like that? I mean, is that within the domain of science right now? Like,
it feels like science fiction, Alex, but
it's mentalism.
Yeah, exactly. Like, are you sure that's not magic?
It's really that's also like the advance of AI are helping us enormously currently.
Okay.
So we consider the electrical signal of the human brain. When you think, your neuron generate electricity, we pick up this signal from many neurons to many cells. And then we train exactly like large language models, what people are using, like ChatGPT, etc. We call it actually brain GPT.
Okay.
Because we consider, the language of the human brain as a series of electrical signals, like a word in a sentence.
Okay.
So, and based on this, we can predict what is the next word, meaning what is the intention from the brain.
And that works?
Well, what happened? Let's go back to Marta. She recovered from the surgery. Day one, we can read a thought, electrical signal generated by her brain, which she think. Then in front of her, she has an avatar looking like her. And then we ask her, okay, now move the leg of this person, which is you.
Yeah.
And she's thinking about it. And within 2-3 minutes, it's effective, and she can actually control the legs of the avatar. Then we link it to the stimulation of the spinal cord, and she's moving her leg, which were paralyzed for several years.
Well, I was just thinking, because if you have an injury and you don't move, like if you're in a cast for 6 months, then when you come out, you just can't move at all. So it seems like if you were paralyzed for years, you would lose the muscle tone.
It's true. That's why we would prefer having people fresh after the
out of an
injury.
injury.
But she had a long already standing injury, so it took time. It took time to rebuild her muscles. And initially, she started doing steps in a body weight support.
Yeah, makes sense.
And it took a lot of weeks.
Months even. It really took close to 5 to 6 months to walk independently.
With a
and
walker.
Still she needs a walker.
But she can walk with the walker.
Yeah, currently, she's sending us picture, video from her home. She's with her family, standing, of course, with the digital bridge turned on. But she can stand and walk independently at home.
Kind of amazing, right? That's incredible.
And she left us a few days after her first independent walk. Because she saw the time, because the study is not infinite. So it was she was a few months with us, and saw that she was still dependent on this body weight support. And the day she knew that she had to leave in 2 weeks, so she worked a lot in order to be independent.
It was the race to the final line of the race.
The last week.
Have you had any other human test pilots like this where you've demonstrated the technology works and
She's number 2, actually. The first patient, so test pilot, was a Dutch man also who had a cervical spinal cord injury, but incomplete. He still had a little bit of residual movements after a bike accident, and he was the first entering this study of digital bridge.
For him, he worked amazingly. And then the third one is a British woman who, like Marta, has a complete spinal cord injury. Also, she's standing, walking. She's using the technology a lot. And the fourth one is ongoing.
It's currently ongoing, yeah.
To put this in perspective, what's the global scope of spinal cord injuries? Like, how many people suffer spinal cord injuries around the world?
In America, it's going to be something like 2 million people.
I personally have several friends who have had major spinal cord injuries just because so many of my friends are professional climbers and paragliders, like paragliding especially.
Paragliding is really...
But I mean, as well from the climbing community, there are just a lot of people that wind up with accidents that... So I have, at least 2 friends who have basically gotten paralyzed in that way. And you're sort of like, so what does it take for somebody to qualify for it's like if you guys are on patient number 4, like when do you get to the other 2 million?
Yeah, it's a good question.
True, because and that's our frustration too, because to get into a study, have the authorization to do a clinical trial takes a lot of energy and time, and it's only for a very little number of patients. So for this study, for example, we are reaching the end. So it's only 4 individuals and that's it. So that's why we need to go further to have an authorized treatment that will be delivered for everyone, that will be reimbursed by the insurances. At this stage, we are still at a stage of clinical studies.
Industry tend to see spinal cord injury as a niche. There are not that many patients to be treated, and then it's difficult for them to invest. And yet, at this moment, we need this support to achieve the transition from 4 to 1,000. Like the next breakthrough for us is this scalability, which is so difficult, so costly. This is also why we, like for example, the Rolex Award gave us a lot of visibility that helps a lot. And that's also why we founded the company to scale all this technology.
Yeah, that's true. Us alone, will remain anecdotal and not for everyone. That's why we need the next step.
But you establish proof of concept. You show that it works. You show that it's worth pursuing. What do you see as the path forward to making this an everyday, normal medical intervention?
To make it available to everyone, you need many steps. And one of them is called a pivotal study, in which you have many, many people, so at least 50, 60 patients who will undergo this surgery and who will be treated. And you have to prove the FDA that it's a good value to have this,
It's safe.
And that it's safe and valuable. That
it works.
That works well.
Also,
and it's a lot of development.
And before that, you need to push the technology that it does not require 3 engineers from the Swiss Federal Institute of Technology to tune the decoder. It needs to be very easy to use for...
you need like a one button. You need like a product interface. You just press the button. This is what
we would
love.
Alex, we have been trying to convince the big players. We talk with several of the big tech billionaires. And we had the discussion and there was a lot of enthusiasm, but not the step
money
to help us to really achieve this transition, and hence our frustration sometimes.
How frustrating is it to keep chipping away at something like this?
Last week, we have a very privilege to receive the Queen Elizabeth Prize for engineering. It's like a big award. And this year, the theme is neural interfaces. So we were one of the invention to receive this prize. And they say, oh, you must be so proud to have this achievement. And actually, our response was like, actually, with this prize comes a huge frustration because we only have a proof of concept. We have not reached 1,000. This means that we have not fulfilled our mission yet. So the prize is just an encouragement for us to complete the mission.
You know, if you imagine science fiction, something like 100 years from now, do you think this type of technology will be what people use to treat spinal cord injuries? Or do you think people will just treat the spinal cord directly somehow and basically restore the biological link?
We believe that it's not going to be the only treatment. You will probably need many different angles of treatment. The neurostimulation is one of them, but you also have to reestablish the biology of and to repair the spinal cord. And this will imply other technologies like gene therapy, cell therapy, and that's together probably in 100 years that will get the maximum chance for a person to recover some mobility.
So with Jocelyn, we founded an academic center called NeuroRestore, in which we like to see us as a Manhattan project for curing paralysis. So we have this digital bridge we're talking about, and we believe strongly that it will help people to recover movement, but clearly not a cure. That's why in parallel, as Jocelyn mentioned, we have this gene therapy. We are pushing enormously the biological repair of the spinal cord to combine with this spinal cord stimulation to achieve a huge synergy and, as you said, the true recovery of movement.
What does the body do in response to these electrical signals from the brain?
It was a bit of a surprise for us too, the first participant who had an incomplete spinal cord injury, meaning that they still have a few fibers functioning. So even 7 years after the first participant was with us, 7 years after his spinal cord injury, and he started training with us. And imagine, for 7 years, he has a completely paralyzed left leg. And a few weeks after the beginning of the training, he started moving his toes. And then stretching his leg without stimulation, meaning that something happened in his nervous system, that something was growing, yes.
So this unexpected discovery triggered a lot of scientific investigation to understand how is it possible. And then what we found is like a fundamental discovery of biology.
Because in a way that finding to me seems super intuitive. You're like, well, naturally, if you train something, it gets stronger.
We knew about muscles. We know about a lot of cells in our body that they can recover after an injury, but the nervous system was still a little of a question mark.
The nervous system does reorganize for about 6 to 12 months, and then the dogma is that that's it.
That is set.
And you cannot, from this moment, change the nervous system.
But so you guys are discovering that you can, from that moment, continue to change the nervous system, in theory, with stimulation, with use.
So what we discovered is that our electrical stimulation, which was only meant to really re-engage the muscles, modulate a very specific type of neurons. The neurons are the cells, right, of the nervous system. There are many different types. There's one type of neuron that we inherited from fish. There's an old neuron.
Okay.
That is not so important for the normal activity of the nervous system. You can kill it, you don't see any problem with movement. But the stimulation activates exactly this neuron, and after an injury, it has a unique capacity to repair the nervous system.
Interesting. So you're saying that one type of neuron can recover.
Correct.
Basically, not the others.
Yeah, this cell, which we can target, release what we call growth factor.
Yeah.
So it will attract nerve fibers that are residual to improve the communication between the brain and the spinal cord. And that's what enabled the recovery.
Okay. So it seems like your technology right now works best on people with incomplete spinal cord injuries because it actually regrows the biological pathways as well.
Yes, at least for the recovery. I wouldn't say that it works best to step in a body weight support initially when you stimulate the spinal cord, but to have recovery without stimulation, you need residual fibers.
Well, that's the ultimate goal, right? To have recovery without stimulation.
That's the ultimate
But there's
goal.
always a complexity with our approach, which is one is called prosthetics, meaning you turn on the digital bridge and people can stand and walk. And then the second step, which is the dream, as you said, the
Just to be able to
recovery
walk. Yeah.
exactly without stimulation.
May I ask, and this is kind of stepping back, but what sparked each of your interests in spinal cord injuries? Like, why this field of focus for so many years? Why the effort?
So for me, I grew with a passion for movement.
That's why you rock climb, because it's the best.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And And by movement, really, I mean fighting gravity. Like that's why I love rock climbing, body swinging in the air, fighting gravity. This feeling of the movement is so important for me, has been essential in my life. This is why I did physics, but then I studied all the brain control movement. And through this academic journey, I was confronted to people who lost the ability to move. And for me, like the decisive moment also was when Christopher Reeves got his accident, because I grew up in the 80s. He was the only superhero.
Yeah, Superman.
And suddenly from superhero to complete paralysis, for me, was striking. This is why I moved to America. And in Los Angeles, I was in the Reeve Foundation as an associate. And that from that moment, I was 27 years old. I've seen like young men, like a lot of in this sport, accident, paralyzed, and it was unbearable. So I decided to dedicate my life to fighting paralysis.
And Jocelyn?
Yeah, on my side, it's a bit different. I had more this passion for medicine, this fascination for major change that helped people. And being able to participate to one of them was a bit of a dream. And that's also why I decided to be what we call a functional neurosurgeon. You improve function of people after, the most common treatment I'm doing is, for example, people with epilepsy, you remove piece of the brain to stop the seizures. People with chronic pain, you stimulate the right place to stop the pain. People with Parkinson's disease, you stimulate at the right spot to stop the tremor. So when I met Grégoire, I would say it's not an opportunity, but it is in a way, because he initiated this research, and I knew that with my knowledge, I could bring it to patients, and that was my passion.
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense. If you feel like you have an opportunity to contribute something meaningful, it's like you have to say yes.
It was a beautiful synergy between us. No.
How did you even discover that there's such a synergy in your work?
Well, I was appointed professor at the Swiss Federal Institute of Technology, but then I wanted to make the transition to human. That's why you do this work. And luckily, the person who actually attracted me in this school also had, he likes to say, trained a neurosurgeon. Fantastic, he told me, Jocelyn. So that's when she came to the lab.
It's true that I spent a few years in a laboratory, so I was aware of the importance of research in my fundamental research. So that's when I met him. We had the same language. So he had a dream. I knew how to make it work in human beings. And we immediately realized that we had this complementary function.
So Grégoire, in 2019, you were named a Rolex Awards laureate. What did that mean to you, and what did that mean to your work?
Well, this award brought a lot of visibility to our fight against paralysis. And I think for me personally, this watch, which I wear, I watch it every day. And this is a reminder of the mission to reverse paralysis.
And that you don't have so much time to do it.
I'm running out of time, Jocelyn, you all right?
How has the Rolex Perpetual Planet Initiative contributed to the work that you're doing?
People are not fully aware of this initiative by Rolex. We see Rolex as a watchmaker, but actually Rolex has this vision that technology can improve humanity. And hence this program, the Perpetual Planet, and for us to be part of this program, to meet many individuals who are doing very different technology development, etc. It's a community that is so heartwarming.
So on my side, I would say I'm not a laureate of Rolex, but they accepted us to be together, and they understood the importance of this binôme. Having these two people from two different backgrounds, it's a kind of symbol of the achievement of what we are doing, and the fact that they accept it. I think it's really nice. Also, what we are doing every time for this objective is to show what we are in common doing for the planet and for the paralysis.
What is success for you guys? What's the next 10 years look like?
On the academic side, we really would like to apply this technology to other medical conditions.
What are examples of those?
We have a typical example of Parkinson's disease. When the disease is pretty advanced, patients have gait problems that we could also address with spinal cord stimulation.
Okay.
People with a stroke, You know, they have a paralysis of half of the body. And we believe that we can also, with spinal cord stimulation, reactivate the paralyzed side.
At the same time, you know, we don't want to come across as not optimistic. You know, our company with us developed a technology that is now effective. We have the platform that have been, I mean, how many people did do implants, Jocelyn, with the technology? At least 15 or 20, no? So now we have started in the US. Currently, the first patient have been enrolled for a large-scale pivotal trial to validate the technology. Not for walking. First, we're going to treat other neurological aspects due to spinal cord injury. But then when this validated, the next step is a pivotal trial for the recovery of walking, which we hope is within about 4 years. So we are reaching the critical moment of deployment at large scale.
At some point, does that mean you need to train other surgeons to implant these devices and things? Because so far you're talking about you personally, Jocelyn, and you know, doing all these surgeries.
Absolutely. And that's why I said that it's important that it's not an anecdotal story, you know, and it needs to be deployed. And we need to teach it to other teams. And the more in the teams, you have surgeons, you have engineers, and that's what we are doing now. And currently, I mean, this first pivotal study is starting now, and we are talking to teams all over the United States.
Yes, 3 days ago we were in Miami with the people from Harvard, from here Columbia, talking with them about patient profile selection, all the process to do that, deploy our treatment.
Yeah, to what extent is your technology enabled by AI, like the mapping of the brain and the mapping movement patterns and things? Is that something that now functions because of AI? Or was this something that could have worked 10 years ago just as well?
No, there's massive AI involvement here. All the new technology that we are developing, what we call a foundation model for human brain language, which is exactly all the new AI development.
That only works because of AI now.
Right.
We were lucky to have the idea at the right time. You know, a lot of people have good ideas, but a bit too early. And they will never succeed. We are at an inflection point in which this AI is really helping us a lot.
What do you guys think about that for kids in graduate school right now? It's like, what do you think are the opportunities in these fields?
Yeah, I think the new generation will have to face new challenges. We are kind of old already, yeah? And when we look at what is the challenge of young people in this new world, I think we should only convince them to be friends with technology and science.
You know, for the past 1,000 years, humans have been confronted to many challenges. And often in time of challenges, people tend to respond with like regulation, with wars, etc., not very constructive solution until science helps them. So I feel that science is always the solution to the challenges of humanity. Now, kids need to understand that there's a big part of this will be done by AI. AI are teaching AI to be better. Like we are entering a new loop, you know? So, but one aspect that AI will not be able to replace human for is biology and medicine in terms of like implementation, experimentation, etc. You know, for a long time until really robots are incarnated and can perform the experiment, etc. Human needs to be involved. So in biology, there's a lot to do still for students.
Gregoire, Jocelyn, thank you guys so much for chatting. Do you have any parting thoughts or anything?
I think we have shown the possibility. A few individuals who were told they would never walk again, now able to stand and take some step with their friends and family. And our hope and mission now is to reach 1,000 when this technology becomes available for all the people who need it. And for this, having the support of the community and the support of industry who want to support us to achieve the transition will be enormously helpful.
Like Gregoire, I believe that we are at this point in which we are pioneer, but alone we won't be able to do it. And the awareness of the community is important, and also the importance of people from different backgrounds. It can be medicine, technology, but also commercial and business, you know. It's important that these people work together to make it happen.
We want to change the perception of the permanence of paralysis, Alex. So from one step to a climb now.
Well, thank you guys.
Thank you for hosting us.
Thanks again to Gregoire Courtine and Jocelyn Bloch. We'll put links to their work in the show notes for this episode. Planet Visionaries is a podcast in partnership with the Rolex Perpetual Planet Initiative and a Sony Music podcast production.